Now, I have a lot of information to share, and I'm just going to get right into it. Some of this stuff to me, I have to admit, was kind of shocking. And when I was doing my research on this, I I just kind of felt overwhelmed, and I started to look at a particular person in the beginning, and when I started to look at and I'm trying to find my document now, just a second. It's the joy of having too many things open. What I mean by this is the person I was looking into is a guy named Velshi. Ali Velshi is a TV news show host, and I'm going to start with sharing my screen first. Let me pull that up, and oh, the joys of technology. Here we go. All right, and here we go. And- Ali Velshi. Now, this is a guy who currently works for MSNBC. He worked for Al Jazeera. Now, Al Jazeera is the mouthpiece of the Muslim Brotherhood, known for its anti-Semitism and promotion of Islamic terrorism. Is it kind of, when you have that kind of a background, is that really the kind of thing that a company that's involved in public relations and news really wants that kind of reputation? That's something we should all be thinking about. What is MSNBC thinking when they're hiring these people who worked for a foreign influence operation, which is what Al Jazeera was? I mean, that was one of the complaints. They were an influence from Qatar, and it was being argued that consistently over and over and over again. We need to think about these things. But let me get a little bit more into Ali Velshi. This is what I had put together, and I'm not going to be putting it all up on the screen. Let me just see if I've got the next one here. All right. So, John Rossimondo of the Investigative Project on Terrorism described Al Jazeera as the terrorist propaganda network with good reason in 2017. Even the New York Times covered the concerns about Arab nations. Concerns of Arab nations. Consider this. I mean, we're talking about Islamic nations, about Al Jazeera being a mouthpiece for terrorism. In Rossimondo's article, he pointed out that the Muslim Brotherhood ideologue Sheikh Yusuf Qaradawi had a show that encouraged the Arab Spring, which was an uprising of violence by Muslim Brotherhood members and other followers of Islam against their governments. Velshi's network, Al Jazeera, did not censor or prevent Qaradawi's repeated endorsements. Oops, I'm on the wrong page here. Sorry, which was an uprising of violence by the Muslim Brotherhood members. Okay, bye-bye. Velshi's network did not censor or prevent Qaradawi's repeated endorsements of martyrdom operations, which are suicide bombers. Because many of Qaradawi's actions on Al Jazeera were prior to Velshi entering employment with Al Jazeera in the United States, it must be thought about that Velshi agreed with the positions of Al Jazeera before entering employment with them. And I say that because when you enter the field of news and you're looking at a new company, one of the things you do is you research them. I'm interested in working for a company. I tend to look and see, do I want to work for them? Would they give me a bad reputation? Well, Al Jazeera seemed to have been the network that Velshi really wanted, and you'll see that as get into it. Now, the other thing John Rossimondo wrote, he wrote another article entitled Al Jazeera America. And the article is Al Jazeera America aired pro-Palestinian propaganda. Now, this was a little while back, but he writes about this during the 2014 Gaza crisis. AJAM, the American Al Jazeera America host Wajat Ali, pushed Hamas's talking points. Now, it's a terrorist. It's a United States recognized terrorist entity. And they were pushing this in the United States Think about it. And this was during the time that Velshi worked here. So he must have approved of it or been willing and consenting. Something to think about. I mean, talking points about population density without a single reference to how the terror group used mosques and civilian buildings to launch rockets, not once. Ali Velshi worked, again, I keep saying this, at Al Jazeera during that time. Now, this year, Ali Velshi has continued doing the work of Al Jazeera by writing highly inflammatory anti-Semitic articles, but he is now being covered for by his other Islamic colleagues at MSNBC. Mehdi Hassan wrote an opinion piece to support him in some things. Now, I want to, before I get into that, I want to bring up one more article, and let me bring up this piece here before I get into this. Ali Velshi is someone I would not trust with any part of my being. And, that's something, and come on, work. Sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. Here we go. All right. I want to share with you this piece about Al Jazeera being the mouthpiece of Muslim Brotherhood. And the reason I want to share this is because of the time this article came out, 2014. Velshi started working there in 2013. Now, this is 8 years ago. Egypt charged 20 Al Jazeera journalists with belonging to the Muslim Brotherhood. Okay. Egyptian prosecutors say they charged 20 Al Jazeera journalists, including 2 British citizens, with belonging to the Mohammed Morsi's Muslim Brotherhood, fabricating news reports and tarnishing Egypt's reputation abroad. Did Al Jazeera in America do that? Absolutely. Were any of these journalists charged? No. But there were others who were, even some from Britain who were charged. Investigations showed the defendants created a media network headed by an Egyptian Canadian Muslim Brotherhood member, Fahmy, that has specialized in creating video scenes contrary to reality and airing them through Qatari Al Jazeera English to distort Egypt's international reputation, the prosecution alleged. Others charged, including disturbing public peace, instilling terror, harming the general interest of the country. And again, this is Al Jazeera. They were very anti-Semitic. And I want you to think, what is this? What is this saying? Is this a group that we can trust? And the absolute answer is no. Muslim Brotherhood, you cannot trust. So this is scary, scary stuff. Thank you for joining us, Darcy. All right. So Mehdi Hassan gets out there and he wrote this piece, and I have read this and read this and read this. And you're my first time going through this piece of what he covers, what he writes here, I had to stop and think. I read this about 10 times before I start to see something different. Now, Mehdi Hassan is another agent of anti-Semitism with a platform on MSNBC. He also worked for, you guessed it, Al Jazeera. Now, he's writing protectively of Velshi. He says, he quote, is my award-winning MSNBC colleague, Ali Velshi, who recently said and wrote that the idea that it's even remotely controversial to call what Israel has imposed on Palestinians a form of apartheid is laughable. And an anti-Semite as well? Is he an anti-Semite as well? Ali, incidentally, is the child of brown South African parents. Okay, nobody cares that he's brown. Nobody cares that he's white. Let's think about this. Is he saying that this calling Israel a form of utilizing apartheid is laughable? Now, again, I had to read this 5 times to pick up. He's really not saying that. I was surprised. So let's take a look at what Velshi actually said. And I'm just going to put this larger so everybody can see it. All right. Here's what happened. The proof that Mehdi Hassan is acting as an agent of anti-Semitism. Here's what Velshi actually wrote. Ali Velshi subtitled his article for May 17th, 2021 as, "We have to be able to say that Israel's treatment of Palestine is apartheid, period." Think about that. Does that sound anti-Semitic? Absolutely. Mehdi Hassan goes so far as to incorrectly quote his colleague in order to protect him. Here's what Velshi actually said. The calling the status imposed on Palestinians a form of apartheid is even remotely controversial, well, is laughable. One look at a current map of Israel, Gaza, and the occupied territories conjures up only one other example: apartheid-era South Africa and the Bantusans, or homelands, into which Black Africans were forced. Palestinians cannot freely travel to see relatives or do business in other Palestinian cities without passing through highly intrusive and often humiliating Israeli checkpoints. Well,
whose fault's that?
I'm sorry?
I said, whose fault is it that they have to go through humiliating, quote unquote, and intrusive checkpoints? If you weren't blowing them up and shooting them every time you turned around, they might want to let out to give you freedom of movement. But every time that you do it, you're given freedom of movement. They tend to go to blow people up and shoot them. I mean, this is just absolutely ridiculous. Just listening to this show is ticking me off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is what bothers me. This is why I'm looking at this. This is hate speech, people. They gave you half the information, and then they're passing themselves off as journalists, and they have this platform. They're out there on MSNBC spewing these lies and hatred, and it's got to be stopped, people. It's got to be stopped. These people this is the destruction.
Well, to call it apartheid again is blatant dishonesty. It is lying to you. Apartheid is nothing like what South Africa had compared to what is going on in Israel today. It's nothing like it. In South Africa, you had a small minority ruling over a much larger Black majority based on based on their race and their status, and they would force them into these communities where they would live in squalor. That's apartheid. What goes on in Israel today is nothing like that.
Well, there's one more thing. Hold on. There's one more thing here. In South Africa, apartheid was the law. It was a legal thing, correct?
Yes, yeah. That was the social construct. It was the way that the society was set up. It was meant to benefit the white people at the expense of the Black people. It was a form of 21st century enslavement, if there was a way to do it, and that's the way you would do it. And the entire world protested, boycotted South Africa, rightly so, and it finally ended. But to say that Israel is an apartheid state and to compare Israel to South Africa is patently disingenuous and dishonest, because the Palestinian, quote unquote, the Muslims in Israel share the same rights as the Jews do in Israel.
So wait a minute, can they vote?
Yes, they can vote. As a matter of fact, they have a Muslim on the Supreme Court. They have them in the Knesset. They can do all these things. I mean, it isn't like they're telling them that you have to go live in this land over. Muslims in Israel can do all these things. The problem lies is in the Gaza and in the West Bank. Two territories, oh, by the way, that Israel had every right to take from Jordan during the 67 war, because why? Jordan attacked them from them. But they're sharing it now with the Palestinians that supposedly inhabited that land prior to 1948 or whatever. But the bottom line is that they're given land in there and they're allowed to live in those lands over there. The only thing that the Israelis would ask, don't blow us up. Don't plant bombs in the roadway. Don't come shooting us up.
Israel has even gone so far as to say, look, you can have this property. We'll even be willing to let you call it like another country if you do one thing: recognize Israel's right to exist. That's all they've had to do. and this is one of the main reasons why I consider this anti-Semitic danger. This is what's gotten me going. And
Well,
yeah,
if it's not qualified and it's not called out, it's going to continue. Just as soon as you start calling these dishonest pigs out for what they are, the sooner they're going to shut their yaps and quit lying about it. But to say that is a form of apartheid, again, is absolutely dishonest. Well, and also, I would add one more thing. The Israel guys, that YouTube channel that I turned everybody on to, these guys go in and they debunk all kinds of these myths as far as, well, there's not enough housing in the West Bank for the Palestinians there. Horse malarkey. They've gone through entire towns that have been built, and 80% of the apartments are empty. They're living in squalor. They're supposed to be being pulled around by donkeys on these buggies. Horse malarkey. 3,000. They went there and they counted how many vehicles coming down the highway in one day were these high-end BMWs, Mercedes Benzes, Range Rover, all of these cars. 3,000 of them in one day. Now, of course, there were some Yugos or whatever the heck it is. But to say that these people are impoverished, to say that their rights are being repressed, is absolutely a lie from the pit of hell.
I won't say their rights aren't being repressed, because that would mean that the people who are in charge of those areas are repressing their rights, which mean Muslims are repressing Muslims. It would have nothing to do with Israel then.
Okay, and here's another question. Go to Gaza. They've given them full autonomy in Gaza. And when do they sue? They elect Hamas and they start firing rockets at Israel. But if you want to be completely honest and completely fair, if you're a Jew, go try and walking down the street in the Gaza Strip, and you tell me what's going to happen to you. You'll never make it out of there alive. Don't give me this crap that the Israelis are persecuting the Jew or the Palestinians. They're protecting themselves.
Yeah, this is the stuff that I have actually seen taught in a classroom, in a social studies classroom. In New York State, at one point, required it to be taught. I don't know if it's still required. I will not teach that because I know better. When it was taught, I put up an Israeli flag next to my desk so everybody could see it. And they'd ask me, why is that there? I have friends in Israel. I know better. That's what I would tell them. Yeah. I know that this information is wrong. So I'm going to put up the next slide here. And this should, and let me just get that back up. Here we go. So it's not just this bad information, this anti-Semitism, this willful ignorance that accepts anti-Semitism as a norm. This is the upsetting thing. And I'm the guy saying never again. Well, stop willful ignorance. So I just saw this up here. And this Ajmal Masroor on April 8th, this April 8th, with the mayor of London. He was meeting with the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. Now there's a picture. Writing in 2012, Masroor praised the leader of the designated terror organization, true and honest leader, who is apparently loved by his people naturally. Okay, you really want to get your people, you want your politicians getting their pictures next to guys who love terrorists. That Hamas is a declared terrorist entity in the UK. This is the mayor of London. Masroor has served as a regular speaker at fundraising events for terror-tied Islamic charities such as Children in Deen. Now, I keep saying this over and over again. Whenever you see a, quote, foster or adoption entity within Islam, you can place your bets that this is probably being used to support terrorism. Guess what? This particular organization supported Hamas proxies, and it was used by Muslims in the early years of the Syrian civil war to smuggle jihadis and cash. And this is all publicly available information. Yet Sadiq Khan, who is Muslim, probably had no problem with schmoozing with this man, knowing that he was involved. Should your politicians, should the people who vote have an issue? Absolutely. And I want to thank Sam Westrup for putting this article out. I just got it today, and this is part of what has been getting me going. I think it's time we stop accepting things. It's time to expose the evil of hatred. Here's another one. This is from my friend Joe Kaufman. Miami Imam Musis. Why has Allah not destroyed America and all homosexuals? Is what his article is. So this man, and I wanted actually what I was looking for when I was looking for this is you hear statements by imams, by Muslims who will say, I will hate what Allah hates. So listen, this is what he said. The people are from two groups, kuffar or Muslims, believers or disbelievers. I decided to love the believers and hate the non-believers. Very simple. If I love Allah more than anything, then what that love necessitates is that I will love what Allah loves and I will hate what Allah hates. Keep thinking about this. I went a little too far. Hold on. This gets scary. Keep going.
Sorry, Paul. I was eating Doritos. Sorry.
All right. Oh, I didn't see anything. So, I'm not going up to a Christian to tell him. Again, he says, I'm not going up to a Christian to tell him I hate you. But that doesn't deny the fact that I do. I don't hate him because his head is big or he's skinny or fat or his skin color. I still hate him as a being. Oh, notice, yeah, he's hating all non-Muslims.
So what's his justification for that?
The Quran, and Muhammad, the way we're going to get into that. So that's what this is a man leading a mosque. Joe Kaufman points out that this man leading this mosque is dangerous. Why? Because he's teaching hatred. And this is extremely important to grasp. This hatred is, you think about, he talks about when this guy preaches, there are children in the room running around, playing, or, there are children there. And there's videos of this. This is where Joe lives in South Florida, and he sees this and he keeps track of it. And I'm very thankful that somebody is doing that.
Okay, so you have somebody that's in charge of a mosque. Now, put the shoe on the other foot. And picture this as a Christian pastor saying that I hate Muslims. What type of outcry do you think that would erupt in our country today if that was ever done? And this is the hypocrisy, not only of the media, of course, not reporting something like this accurately, but of the Muslims themselves. Where is the universal condemnation calling for this guy's removal from a mosque? I hate the two people, Muslims, a believer. I decided to love the believers and hate the non-believers. Very simple.
So isn't this reason for Islamophobia? I mean, the fear that his hatred. What does hatred inspire? And if you're encouraging it, now you're talking about violations of law. If he's doing this and he's preaching this, then he could be guilty of inciting violent acts.
Exactly. And this would be a call to have the license for the mosque to be pulled, or for whatever zoning requirements they have, that pull the lease. And if you're going to be preaching, I mean, think about this. You're going to be preaching this kind of stuff and saying this is from Allah, this is from their holy books. And you see, I'm about as afraid as these guys as I am from the boogeyman in my closet. I'm not. There's no phobia here going on. But when you start talking about people having a hatred towards a belief system, well, this is exactly an indicator, because by their fruits you will know who they are. And this is exactly what you get from the people who follow that book, who follow the sunnah of that man. It's not a surprise for you and I, anyway.
So, like I said, I'm not too scared of getting another hate speech strike, because I'm talking about hate. I'm exposing it. And if that's what works for YouTube, I'm tired of seeing this, and I'm tired of Americans in particular, American pastors in particular, not saying stop. My pastor says what he says, and he'll tell you that, look, Christians are to love. Our job is to love. And what's this man's job? He's apparently taking it as his job to teach, hey, let's talk about why. That's where I think we need to start getting towards that. So here's a piece that I have, part of my book, The Cancer of Civilization Jihad. I begin to discuss this. Now, there's this book written by Sheikh Mohammed Saeed Al-Qahtani, who is an Islamic scholar based in Saudi Arabia, and this book is called Awala wal Bara. I'm hoping that's the correct pronunciation. It's published in 1999 in English, but I want you to think about this book. This is, to me, a very, very dangerous book. Now, there's reasons why I say this is dangerous. Now, I've got to pull up the piece I have here to read. According to the author, Al-Bara, in Arabic language, so we got that. This is the second part of that, Awala Al-Bara. Al-Bara means severance. Severance is to leave off something. It is to walk away from something or to distance oneself from it. So what is the Muslim severing himself from? What is he severing himself from in this belief? It is the things and people that are not of Islam. Al-Qahtani refers to Quran 2:257 to clarify this. Allah is the ally of those who believe. He brings them out from darkness into the light. And those who disbelieve, their allies are Tagut. Excuse me. They take them out of the light into darkness. Those are the companions of the fire. They will abide eternally therein. Tagut is a reference to those who do not worship Allah, non-Muslims. We, the non-Muslims, are seen as the companions of the fire. The Quran here says non-Muslims will abide in fire, hence the reference to eternal fire. Al-Qahtani also believes Muslims must be separate from disbelievers in every way. He quotes from the Quran to prove this point. And he says, and if you turn away, he will exchange you for some other folk. That's Quran 47:38. Keep thinking about this, people. It gets worse. Let's talk about prayer. This is probably one of the ones that gets me angry. I get really angry when I start to think about this. And, when I talk about hate, we should be angry that people are preaching and teaching this. We should not be supportive in our anger. We should be angry that this is happening and we're doing nothing. That's why I'm here. That's why we're here. We should be exposing this. Rad, I'll put you back in. Sorry about that. This prayer that is repeated 17 times a day. That's this first surah. In this first surah, let's just skip down to verse 6. The way of those whom you have graced, which is supposed to be the Muslims, not those whom the wrath is against. So 17 times a day, Muslims speak of hatred of their God against the Jews. That's anti-Semitism. It's enforced 17 times a day for every single Muslim on the planet who decides to pray. Think about it. Now, nor the lost ones. Does that sound like hate? Well, it sounds like you're talking about confused, but there is definitely hatred expressed towards Jews. Wrath. Wrath is anger. And this is who's responsible for this? According to this, it is Allah. It's not Muslims. It is Allah that has this hatred. That's in the first surah. So let's talk about where this begins in Muhammad. And I recommend this book. It's called The Origins of the Islamic State. It's a book by al-Baladuri. I have this. It's translated by Philip Hitti. I have a slightly different cover for this book, but I love this book. because it's very factual. And if you don't have it, I do recommend that you pick it up. So I want to talk about Muhammad's arrival in Yathrib and how it was reported in this book. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about what's not exactly said in this book. It's in the book, it says, it is reported that the arrival of the prophet in Al-Madinah, which was called Yathrib at the time, he wrote an agreement and made a covenant with the Jews of Yathrib. The Jews, however, were the first to violate the covenant, and the prophet expelled them from Al-Madinah. The first land that the prophet conquered was that of the Banu Nadir. And see, this is kind of off, too, because they're skipping another tribe. Conquered. Now, they skipped another tribe. We'll talk about that. And this is, look at the title of this book, people. This is what originally caught my eyes. The Origins of the Islamic State. Let's keep going. This comes from, I took this from my book, but it's also quoting Ibn Ishaq. So here's what al-Baladuri hid from the story of Muhammad arriving in Yathrib. Things got so bad, Muhammad began to leave Mecca and to find allies who allow his followers to find a safe haven. But it's important to understand that Muhammad wanted more than a safe haven to worship as he chose. He was seeking a military alliance. He wanted people to fight with him against Mecca. He wanted to be able to come back to Mecca and fight them. That was the deal. So in one encounter didn't go so well, when he was trying to do this. According to Muhammad's first biographer, Ibn Ishaq, he went to Amir bin Sa'at tribe. When Firas gave his report to the people, he told them of a man of the Quraysh pretending to be a prophet, seeking protection and their military might so that he might attack and make Mecca submit to their leadership. Oh, it didn't work. But the people of Yathrib, it worked with. So the story that was first presented in this book that I just talked about, it wasn't accurate. And this is the reason why. Keep thinking about this. This is why I want this book in the hands of social studies teachers. What do you think, Eric? Is this working? All right. Social studies teacher.
I wonder if we could have it sent out statewide.
Oh, if I could afford to do it, I would.
I'll call Des Moines tomorrow and find out.
Yeah. Like Mecca, Yathrib was the home to more than one tribe. Not all of them got along. According to Ibn Ishaq, the Khazraj tribe lived side by side with Jewish tribes. Whenever there is difficulties that arose between them, the Jews would raise the Quraysh. Ibn Ishaq added that during these times, the Jewish tribes of Yathrib claimed a prophet would be sent to them, and they would one day kill the Quraysh under his leadership. Again, there's some things in Ibn Ishaq that make me curious about the story, and I'll get into them later. But Muhammad's timing couldn't have been better. Now, the Quraysh feared that what would happen if the Jewish tribe accepted Muhammad as their prophet, because he's out there claiming he's a prophet. This could lead to continual discussion of what the prophet named Muhammad could do for the Khazraj. According to Ibn Ishaq, there was no home of the Khazraj where Muhammad's name was not spoken of. They became followers of Muhammad. It became a goal of the tribe to seek out Muhammad before the Jewish tribe found him and claimed him as their own. There's a reason that would never happen. 1 year later, the Khazraj sent 12 men to an annual fair at Mecca to search for the prophet. When they found him, they gave the prophet a pledge of women and later agreed to a military alliance. That's when Muhammad decides to leave Mecca. Oh, he has his people leave, and he leaves in the middle of the night. So what this is actually, telling us is that Muhammad was committing treason against his own people, and he was willing to come back and fight them. Now, this comes directly from the Life of Muhammad, the Sir al-Rasul. Again, this is Ibn Ishaq's. So this is his first address. When he arrives, he shares this information with the Jews. He's going to talk to the Jews. Listen to how he talks to the Jews. All the Jews are gathered together in the market. He assembles them and he says, "Oh, Jews, beware, lest Allah bring upon you the vengeance that he brought upon the Quraysh." And he tells them to become Muslims. You know that I am your prophet who has been sent. I am a prophet that has been sent. You will that in your scriptures in Allah's covenant with you. Wait a minute. Let's think about this. I mean, think about what he said. You know that I am a prophet who has been sent? Well, they would have to search their scriptures to find out if that's true. And if these people know their scriptures, they think this is laughable. So let's see. Do they know their scriptures? The Jews reply here, "Oh, Muhammad, you seem to think that we're your people. Do not deceive yourself, because you encountered a people with no knowledge of war and got the better of them. For by God, if we fight you, you'll find that we are real men." Well, Muhammad had just won his first battle, and all of a sudden he wants to come and kind of threaten the Jews. Oh, well, you're not tough enough. You can't scare us. That's the Jews here. They're smart. You don't dare fight us. Well, that's the truth, that he didn't dare. The Khazraj are from this point on referred to as the Ansari, which is another word for the helpers, the natives of Yathrib. They advise Muhammad they're not strong enough yet to deal with the Jews. So Muhammad has a divine revelation. This is the stuff that Aisha said, you have these convenient revelations. Oh, here's what he said. And this is from Quran 5:51. You who have believed, do not take the Jews and the Christians as protectors or friends or allies, comrades. You can change the word there as much as you want. They are friends to one another. And whoever among you takes them as one, so surely he is of them. So surely Allah does not guide the unjust people. Think about that. That's his response to not being strong enough. Oh, we can't have any association with you. What happened to Muhammad that made him leave Mecca? He got blacklisted, blackballed. None of his relatives were, none of his people were just being kept out. And this is Muhammad's response. He wants to blackball them. Now he has the power. This is scary. Again, this is the anti-Semitism of Muhammad. All right. So Muhammad goes to battle against the Jewish tribe, the Banu Kanuka. Now, this is the first tribe. It's not the Nad. This is where that first book that I introduced, The Origins of the Islamic State, isn't exact. This is where I say you have to be very close attention when you look at sources. I like to go to the older sources first. Why? Because a lot of times they're more accurate. This is what we talk about with the importance of primary sources, but unfortunately, Ibn Ishaq is not. It's the closest thing we have to a primary source of the time period, probably. So Muhammad battles the Jewish tribe, Banu Kanuka. According to the first seer, the Banu Kanuka were the first of the Jews to break from their agreement with the apostle by assisting the enemy of Muhammad, and the apostle besieged them until they surrendered unconditionally. Now, Muhammad lets 700 men leave with their families and takes possession of their lands. So it wasn't Nadir that was the first. This is the first tribe, the Kanuka. Kanuka, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Now we get to the Nadir. Muhammad starts this fight by declaring, "Kill any Jew that falls into your power." Is that like declaring war? Sure sounds like it. If we said to Canada, we said it to kill any Canadians who come across the border, would that be a declaration of war? I would say, what if the Canadians said that to us? Any Americans that come over here, we'll kill them. You don't want to know what would happen? There would be an all-out war. We'd kill them. It's
It would not end well for the Canadians. Just saying.
yeah, that's pretty much an understatement. There's far more people here, and it would be over quickly. I think it would just be a removal of just an idiot from power, and everybody else might live well after that.
I mean, a bunch of truckers in a bouncy house almost took down that government. You know, just saying.
And the socialists are still in power. That's the issue we got there as well as it is here. So this guy, Muhammad, I mean, there is a statement here that this Banu Nadir planned to kill Muhammad. There's a discussion about them actually having a rock, and they were going to, someone had a rock and was thinking about killing Muhammad. Okay. How does Muhammad know what someone is thinking? Well, remember, it's not Muhammad that's writing his biography, because by the time it's written, he's already dead. And it's hundreds of years later, which is even worse. How do they know what somebody thought a few hundred years ago? So this is where you have to sit there and have some humor about it, but that's their claim. That's their reason for this war, besides thinking they can kill them. So they surround and they fight. They surround the Banu Nadir for 14 days. Muhammad's people still are not greatly strong, but they're strong enough to cut them off from their sources, and these people leave on 600 camels. It's a lot of people. Okay. How about this one? Then you have the Banu Quraysh. It's claimed that Banu Quraysh attempted to remain neutral in respect to Muhammad and the Meccans at the Battle of the Trench. Islamic sources claim that the Jews supported them. Well, you've killed off two of my friends. What I mean, they kicked them out of Dodge. They've removed them. They're the last ones. Now, what would you be thinking? I mean, is the enemy of my enemy my friend at this point? Is that the thought that you would be having? The end result here is that every male with one pubic hair is executed. Approximately 600 to 800 men are killed and buried. I say men with quotes because a boy with one pubic hair is still not a man. I'm sorry. They're buried in a trench.
Remember, that was the only qualification. Who makes that a qualification? What kind of sick perv makes the evidence of pubic hair as a qualification to be a man?
That is the simple answer here is that is the pervert named Muhammad who wants to see young boys' pants pulled down. I mean, that's the only answer I have for that.
I was just doing a check because everything that that we learn or know about Islam, for example, when you're reading from the Sirah of Ibn Ishaq, that was written down 100 years after the death of Muhammad. And then we don't even have a copy of that. Well, the only thing we have is what Ibn Hisham had said, and that wasn't compiled until over 2 centuries after Muhammad. And then when we start looking at these hadith that are compiled, they're written down and compiled 230 years later. I'm trying to find. I would like to know, and I went in and I'm trying to find evidence for the existence of these Banu Quraysh, the Banu Nadir, and the Banu Kanuka tribes. I would like to know if there's any evidence for these Jewish tribes in Yathrib in the 7th century.
No, that would be interesting.
I'm gonna drill down on that.
Yeah, considering. Yeah, that would be interesting. I think if we follow what they say,
I'm done following what they say.
I don't believe a
word of it anymore.
The evidence we might look for is actually the farming, because there's a claim here in Ibn Ishaq over and over again that the followers of Muhammad are terrible farmers. That would make and the followers. So we're even talking about the the Anasari were not great farmers, and the Jews were capable of this, and they destroyed
nobody's
the
a great
land.
farmer in the desert, for Pete's sake. Who's a successful farmer when you get 4 inches of rain a year? Nobody's going to be a good farmer.
Well, Yathrib, I don't know. I mean, that's their best claim, and this is again another. This is. I mean, you've got to think about this. This is 600 to 800 men killed, and he has his child bride there to watch it all.
Yeah,
that's just a sick, demented man.
I'm going to try to
romance, baby. That's pure romance, dude. You know what I'm saying? Come on, man. That's just sexy stuff right there, man. Just saying.
So this next part, I wanted to go to the Quran and talk about some of these passages. I actually, Eric shared a lot of these with me, and I'm going through them, and I wanted to give some of the background. So what you've learned so far is this anti-Semitism exists. Mainly, here's the real reason why. Because when Muhammad started to declare himself a prophet, and he started to say, well, you have to accept me as your prophet, the Jews laughed at him because, first of all, the first requirement to be a prophet of the Jews is to be of them. You have to be part of them. You can't come from some foreign land and say, okay, I'm one of your prophets. It doesn't work like that. It does not work like that. That violates Leviticus and Deuteronomy. Sorry. And if you don't know the law, which Muhammad continually demonstrated he didn't know the law, he wanted people to go fight with him on the Sabbath. What does he do? That's one of the reasons why he kills off the Quraysh. Yeah. So let's look at Surah 296. Surah 2 is supposed to be one of the first surahs after Muhammad reaches Yathrib, which is later called Medina. And here's one of the first surahs, ayahs from Surah 2. And surely you will find them, all of the people, most covetous of life, and from those who are polytheists. One of them wished he would live for 1,000 years, and it will not remove him from the torment to live long, and Allah sees what they do. So here's my thought on this. So Jews are wrong for respecting life. Is that what they're trying to say? That they want to live, that they love life? Let's look at the reverse of this. What do Islam's followers, why do they mock this? In Israel and wherever Islamic jihadis are, one of their claims is we love death more than they love life. So they're mocking the love of life. I love life. Most people I know love life. That's what enables them to go on for the next day. They have hope. This is the death of Muhammad seems to have a love of the death of hope, I guess is how I would interpret that. To mock Jews for having a love of life, something's wrong. Let's look at Al-Baqarah. This is still chapter 2. This is from verse 14. And when they fall in with those who believe, they say, we believe. But when they go apart to their devils, they declare, lo, we are with you. Verily, we did but mock you. This is a statement that you can't trust the Jews. They change their minds back and forth. They'll say they're with you, and then they say they're without you. How about this one? Enjoin your righteousness upon mankind while you have yourselves forget to practice it. You are the readers of the scriptures. Have you no sense? Again, these are generalizations. This is part of the definition of hate speech. So does that mean YouTube should be banning any presentation of hate speech that has to do with any, from any source that would have to do with citing these verses? they would probably ban someone who talks about it and exposes anti-Semitism rather than ban the persons who promote it. That's what we have seen, unfortunately. How about this one? Correct. We'll go back to this 2:247. Woe to those who write the book with their hands. Then they say, this is from Allah, and purchase gain by its small price. So woe for what their hands wrote, and woe to them for what they are earning. Again, this verse claims that the Jews wrote their scriptures. It claims they are deceivers, but stops short of claiming that their scriptures are not accurate. The Jews claim, yes, humans wrote these. Yes, Moses wrote the first 5 books, but he was divinely inspired, and as well as the other writers of the Old Testament were divinely inspired to write this, that God worked through them. That's what they believe about their scriptures. And it's what Christians believe. But they're mocking them. This is it's supposed to be insulting. The funny thing is, the Jews take this differently. How about this one? And their prophet said to them, surely Allah has sent tall. What? I took this from Usama Dakdak's Quran, and I sat there laughing when I saw that word talut. And it means tall. So this is thought to be a reference to Saul as a king to you. They said, how can the kingdom be to him over us when we are more worthy of the kingdom than him? And he has no abundance of money. Really? Did they not read? The person who wrote this really did not know the book of Samuel. Apparently did not know that the people were begging for a king, and they liked the idea that this tall guy, Saul, big physical guy, manly man, was the guy chosen. And it was God that said, hey, you could have something better, but, this is your choice. But again, this is mocking Jews, and it's misinformation about what Jews believe to promote anti-Semitism. So this is disappointing all around. I'm just going to continue. He said, surely Allah has chosen him over you and has given him increase in knowledge and stature, and Allah has given his kingdom to who he wills, and Allah is large knowing. Doesn't sound like Allah knows the full story here. That's what we keep seeing. And again, what does this say about the Jews during the days of Samuel? It says that they think they should rule themselves. That's not even close to accurate. But again, this is an anti-Semitic statement. If it's made, again, these are supposed to be the words of Allah. So Allah is the author of anti-Semitic statements in the Quran, because all of the Quran is supposed to be the word of Allah. So if we're taking them at their word, and I have more I'm going to put up and get out of this here. Yeah, let me get the mouse back. Sorry. Yeah, stop sharing. Here we go. Excuse me.
The Quran also says that the Jews worshipped Ezra. Also, was that 530? I'd have to look it up. 533, I believe it is. It says that the Jews worshipped Ezra as the son of God, and then it goes on to say, the verse goes on to say, is that the Christians worship. What was that? What did I say that was? 30. 29. Well, I think it's 29, 30.
Yeah,
So
there's a lot of this stuff. Now, I'm going to pick a couple of these, a couple other ones here. One is from, again, Surah 2. This is from verse 61. It is easy for them to slay people and kill innocents. Nothing in this world is dear to their hearts than shedding blood and murdering human beings. They never give up this trait, even with the messengers and the prophets. Allah says, and slew the prophets wrongfully. I mean, again, blatant anti-Semitism, blatant hatred against the Jews. Is it This is so filled throughout the Quran. There's Eric, you sent me a link to this, and I looked at it and I tried to separate it by putting it in order, chronological order, and I just sat there. As I'm going through this, I'm kind of like, whoa, there's an awful lot here. Al Imran, I believe that is chapter 3. Am I right? Or is that chapter 4? They used to fabricate things, falsely ascribe them to Allah. Allah Almighty says this is because they say we have no duty to the Gentiles. They speak a lie concerning Allah knowingly. So he would say Jews lied knowingly. And there's, again, so many scriptures that are blatantly anti-Semitic. But the thing I taught my students over and over again is that the very existence of the Jew is a denial of the Islamic faith, because the Jews are descended from Isaac. All right, the family of Isaac. And then you get to Jacob, who becomes, his name is changed to Israel. Guess what? That would mean that this belief structure that the followers of Muhammad created, that Ishmael was the chosen one. By the way, Eric, I have a question. Have you ever seen in the Quran any mention of Ishmael's descendants?
Not in the Quran, no. In Genesis, I believe we have a mention of the descendants of Ishmael, but not in the Quran. Not that I'm aware.